Alrighty, let's talk about some serious education issues tonight.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Good Friday evening to you. It's a pleasure to have you aboard. A lot going on this week on the education front, and a perspective that we are pleased to get is the labor teacher union perspective. And you know, I don't see that perspective as monolithic necessarily. There's certainly a lot of common ground amongst union leadership on certain issues, namely the contract extension bills that have flown through the House and now a Senate committee this week. I have grave concerns. I have serious concerns about municipal authority or capability to keep the taxpayers protected. And I know my guests will quarrel with me on that in a sportsmanlike fashion, but it's good to have union leadership on the show as much as possible, because if we just have the folks from the, quote, other side all the time, I think it bends the perspective. On Friday nights, we tend to be single conversation or category issue based because we don't record on Friday. We record our Friday night shows on Thursday. So if all heck breaks loose on Friday, we catch up on Monday. So given that, the big story, I think, over the week was what happened in Providence with the governor suggesting that it's time to laser focus on the city, which I think is well overdue. Here was some foundational news reporting on it, and then you'll be introduced to the Providence Teacher Union president.
We've decided it's time.
Alongside Mayor Jorge Elorza, Governor Gina Raimondo explained why the comprehensive review of the Providence Public School District is happening now.
The status quo isn't working. The system isn't working. The RICAS scores that came out in December were yet again a wake-up call. And really, it's a call to action to every single one of us.
The governor said the review has been recommended by incoming Education Commissioner Angelica Infante Green, who officially starts her role next week. With that position transitioning, an outgoing superintendent in Providence, and the RICAS scores, Governor Raimondo and Mayor Elorza agreed the timing is right.
There's a moment right now that we want to take advantage of.
The review is expected to take place over the next several weeks. The governor was asked if this means a state takeover of the Providence school system could happen at some point down the road. She says it's too soon to say exactly what this will lead to.
We don't have a predetermined outcome, and that's why we're beginning by listening.
And the mayor said he would only be open to a state takeover if it was a collaborative effort, not something imposed from the top down on the city.
Every kid in every zip code in every neighborhood in Providence, every kid deserves a chance to go to a high-quality, flourishing public school, and this is a first step.
No doubt. I think the governor is absolutely on target on that one, and I'm sure the Providence Teachers Union agrees. Maribeth Calabro is with us. Welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I have a couple of thoughts about what happened this week and the governor's co-announcement. I'm glad that the city of Providence is getting some extra focus here, and it seems like Angelica Infante Green, the new commissioner, inspires that. Chicken or the egg, her appointment demanded attention. Whoever came in had to be somewhat of an urban specialist, it seems to me. Don't you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agree.
And I also think that the timing being that the superintendent's on his way out, and it's a city in flux with very poor performance numbers, demands this.
Yeah.
What was your take? I've got a couple of specific questions about even the stuff that I heard there, but what was your overall take?
So the commissioner reached out to me Monday evening to let me know that this announcement was going to be made on Tuesday. And we had a very good conversation on Monday evening. And she was very specific in our conversation in letting me know that this was not going to be just about focusing on bad teaching and what bad teachers we are and how we're all to blame. But she, in fact, said that this was more about governance and the governance structure and the way things work in Providence, and maybe what impediments we may be seeing in terms of governance that may be contributing factors also to our low test scores.
Well, governance models is something I've been talking about for years here. I'm not sure that her or your impression or definition of governance model is the same as mine. I would like to see the entire state of Rhode Island change the way it's doing business to allow for and for local communities to make some entrepreneurial decisions to start creating some synergy between town councils, city councils in this case, and school committees. Outside of Providence, everyone more or less does it the same way. In Massachusetts, mayors sit on school committees as chair people. School committees are elected. So I want to see that formula all across the state. But in Providence, making a change is interesting because it's already a mayor-appointed school committee, super control, authoritative situation.
Correct.
Mayor doesn't necessarily sit on the school committee; he just runs
No,
it.
he doesn't.
You know,
Correct.
You made a really compelling statement on the radio this week about the dynamic right now. Is it fair to suggest that you think that this mayor is a micromanager of what's happening in the system?
The statement I made, yes. So the short answer is yes. The
And-
statement I made was that I speak to people all over the country and I speak to people all over the state, and I don't know anywhere else where people who are non-union employees have their final interview with the mayor of the city in which they're interviewing. And that happens in Providence.
And the non-union employees are
A crossing guard, an assistant principal.
once you become
principal.
Once you become an assistant principal, you're out of the union. You get
Correct,
You
yes.
get promoted up to.
You get promoted up to-
deans stay in the union, and after
Yes.
dean, you go to assistant principal.
Correct.
I think that is. I mean, it is awful for a superintendent to have that hanging over his or her head. And is that why you think we've had a little transition here? I mean, the current you're a fan of the current superintendent, Chris Mark, correct?
We are very much aligned pedagogically, and
Okay.
and you know we have disagreements, and we have had disagreements behind closed doors about some things, but by and large, we are in agreement about the strategic plan and the direction of which the district should be going. Yes.
It seems to me that the superintendents, though, seem to go with lips sealed and the same kind of vibe, though. It's about, it's always about, other opportunities and this and that. But if you probe a little, you get a little bit of the tension convention that exists in the superintendency period,
Yep.
which is that someone's squatting on me. Now, that's the charter since 1980. But you can really overdo the charter. And it seems like this mayor has a little bit of OCD when it comes to it. Like to have a practice like that is disempowering to a superintendent, correct?
Absolutely. I think it absolutely is, and I think it takes away from. So when you hire someone to be the leader of a district, and that means that you give them the authority to lead. And when you put someone in a leadership position, that means that they are able to say what they want done and in what manner they want it done. And then when you find that certain things have to go through all these channels all the way up through to the mayor's office in order to get done, then the office of the superintendency loses its power.
I'm guessing that if you haven't already, you'll be making that pretty clear to the new commissioner.
Oh, absolutely will.
Yeah.
I already have.
So
in
when
our
she
brief
says governance
conversation.
and you say governance, are you talking about execution within the current charter in the city of Providence, or making suggestions to change the way we do business governance model-wise, period?
I personally am talking about all of it. So not only because I've said this to her as well. So I'm not only talking about the way in which things are occurring currently, but I have also said to the incoming commissioner that there are things that happen at the Rhode Island Department of Ed that hurt us as a district as well.
All right, hold that thought, because I want you to be able to expand on that. We'll come back and talk about that when we return. Stay with us. Continue with Maribeth Calabro, the president of the Providence Teachers Union. I don't want to just do a dump on Mayor Elorza here, and he's going to be welcome to come in here and talk to us about this. I got a sense that he was saying some of the right things when this announcement came from the governor that there's going to be a hyper focus on Providence in kind of a couple of month-ish forensic audit. But I also felt the tone was kind of kicking and screaming at the same time. I mean, did you get that? What's you're behind the scenes pretty
I mean, I
checked in.
You know, cart, horse, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that it was the governor and Commissioner Green that came up with this.
He didn't come running to the state saying, we have a new ed commissioner, please focus on our problems.
I'm not sure that he did, no.
The question about state takeover was asked, and you saw the governor kind of say, hey, listen, we're open-minded about all this. Be careful what you ask for. Central Falls had a state takeover a long time ago, and I think shaking and baking there, they may want to relieve themselves of that.
Correct.
And find a new way to do business in Central Falls. So
Agreed.
So state takeover doesn't necessarily mean, oh, thank God, now the fix is in, right?
It's all better.
Or it'll be
and
fixed.
we're all,
So
good.
on that, you're talking about RIDE, Rhode Island Department of Education, also being difficult for everyday life in Providence education. What is it?
So I think that there's a level of red tape and a level of accountability that's expected at RIDE that is unrealistic. So we are the largest district, obviously, in the state, and they put demands on our district that are unrealistic. So they ask for something, or they tell the district that I'll use the community advisory boards. So they told the district that they had to have community advisory boards.
Made up of?
Community. So members of the community, families, et cetera, community partners.
Teachers included?
No. This
is not the site-based management
No,
models.
no.
That
This is
includes
the- this is
parents,
from the-
teachers,
right, no.
administrators.
These are community
Okay.
members so that they can participate in talking about their schools, which is, I think, a wonderful approach. But what had happened was they had spoken about these community advisory boards, and they said that they would be happening, and the next thing you know, when the due date comes is 48 hours before the due date is when they get all of the documentation about what's required of having to have these boards put together. All of the processes and procedures and accountability, and that's unrealistic in a district our size with 26,000 students, all these families, multiple languages. So they, and then they expect, four-week turnaround. You can't expect those things. You just can't. And if you even put that aside and you go to the test scores themselves. So we received the test scores in January. We started testing on Tuesday. We received the test scores in January in the aggregate. We didn't receive them in the disaggregate. And then we spent the better half of 6 to 8 weeks talking about them in the aggregate. So we had no time to adjust instruction and plan.
Meaning the
global.
district scores.
It's more global. So district scores, holistic school scores, rather than talking about second graders need to focus on
Got you.
this standard, and this standard, so that we could have spent 8 weeks designing instruction to focus on those things to ramp up kids who are starting to test on Tuesday. But we didn't do that because of fulfilling all the obligations of meeting with RIDE and talking about these numbers.
Right. You're a teacher.
I am.
In addition to being the head of the union. So you can talk about this stuff on the ground.
Yes.
You're a middle school teacher?
I am.
Yeah. Which is a challenge in and of itself, right?
You're either a middle school teacher or you're not.
Yeah,
There's no middle ground.
Well, I think it is one of the most important times, maybe the most important time in a kid's life. I learned that first, second, and third grade are really important when it comes to the basics of math and reading and writing. That if you don't catch a kid at first, second, and third grade, remediation in middle school becomes really difficult. But I also think that in terms of time of life, middle school teachers are miracle workers in the sense that you're dealing with kids who are 12 going on 25 and 12 going on 2
Yes.
at every 5-minute interval, right? You're seeing all sorts of social stuff that you can't believe, and then there's like, they still need their mommies and daddies, and some of the kids in your school system are struggling with
Yes,
that.
they are.
So I get how hard it is, and you speak about this educational thing, this state thing, almost as if you were the superintendent, in the sense that you're not arguing on the behalf of the teacher union necessarily. You're arguing on behalf of the system's challenges
in
with
place.
the system.
Yes.
The system versus the system.
Yes.
Is there a place where the teacher union disagrees even with the current and soon-to-be former superintendency about what the state is there a systemic disagreement between in the system itself between the union and the management about the way things are being executed?
Yes.
What is it?
Timing and expectations.
Of and about?
I don't think, I say this all the time about teachers, especially it's just like what you said. So elementary teachers, I say this all the time. I read during reading week to elementary. It's like the best part of the job that I do. I couldn't do their job. I don't know how they do their job. Elementary teachers are miracle workers, what they do during the day. Middle school, a little bit different. We have a different mindset. We engage differently with our kids, and then high school is a completely different show, right? But teachers, we came to this profession, most of us came to this profession to do what we do, which is teach kids, right? We don't mind doing that. We want to do that. We just want to know what you want us to do. But we don't want to know 5 minutes before we're asked to do it. We want to have time to look at curriculum, to prepare, to vet things, to pilot things.
And even your own Providence school system is what? Shoving things at you with immediate?
Not them so much, but it's just all of, and I get that there's a sense of urgency based on the test scores. We feel it, and if you don't think teachers feel it, please believe me, they do. I've had teachers cry about test scores. We feel it. It means a lot. That's about us too. It says a lot about us because we're trying, we're working. But what isn't out there is that we have no say in the direction that this district and this state goes in. So when there wasn't a guaranteed and viable curriculum, when we didn't have a choice in standards, we've been through, we had Superintendent Marr, we had Superintendent Lucy, we had, Superintendent Brady, and on. This is my 11th or 12th or 13th superintendent in 25 years. That's a lot of different pedagogy. That's a lot of different philosophies. That's a lot of different curriculums.
And now the commissioner is going to come in, and I'm not sure what she's going to do. She's going to study this and help in designing the hiring process for the new superintendents?
Mm-hmm.
Or is she going to kind of
I don't know, but
do it herself for a while?
What we need is stability. We're begging for stability at the top. We need a plan. We need a strategic plan.
Do you like this new site-based management stuff that's soon to come out of the legislature? It seems it's going to come out any day now.
Yep.
Delegating authority to principals and site-based management teams.
We have that in our contract. We have school-based autonomy in our contract. We're one of the first to do it in the state. We have that in our contract, so that schools can go off
How
on
long
individual.
has that been operational? For the 3 years you've been in this deal?
6.
6.
I put it in the last contract.
Is it working?
It does work.
Okay.
It does work.
But that's not necessarily what's moving the numbers, because the numbers aren't moving very well in the city right now.
They're not.
This is such a complicated conversation.
It's a very complicated conversation.
Yeah, and one 20-minute interview is not going to get it done. We'll wrap up when we come back. Stay with us. It's interesting. I had a handful of other things I wanted to get to at Maribeth Calabro tonight, but I appreciate the candor and the perspective from the teacher side on just quality of life in the city of Providence right now. We can talk about the contracts, the evergreen contracts as they're reported. I don't, and we'll do that another day. The bottom line for you in this position of this time of change, you're losing your superintendent, we're gaining a new ed commissioner. The bottom line for you is going to be what? What do you most desire to happen that you know will improve the quality of life and the performance of the Providence school system? Do you wake up in the morning going, if we just did this, we would be great? And you have consensus amongst the rank and file. What is it?
If we just had stability.
Defined as doing what we're doing now?
No, not maintaining the status quo. If we had a strategic plan that outlines where we are and where we need to be, and allows, and we've already started on the trajectory with the individualized education, so we're working on personalized learning with our students. So if we're able to do that, and we make it so that regardless of who sits in that leadership seat, because if they stay for 2 years or 10 years, which is never going to happen.
You want them to be stewards of a plan.
Yes.
Not architects of a new one.
Architects of a new one. Every time we blink, someone new comes in.
But what comes with leadership is some call it the greater fool theory, others, but you give people who have leadership vision the chance to lead.
And I understand that. But if we're reflective of what's going on currently and look at what works, and take what works and continue what works, and take what's not working and revise it with methods that are working from someplace else and not something that you created in a dream sometime or you heard last week, on a plane, then I'm fine with that.
I get that. So this new commissioner did say that she's not coming in to rearrange the chairs on the deck. I'm not going to call it the Titanic.
Thank you.
But clearly her expertise in urban education is going to really influence her work. And it'll be interesting to see whether a new superintendent comes quickly or slowly based on her hyper-focus on the city. My guess is that she's going to focus on the city like a laser first.
Yes.
And then influence the mayor. And that's going to be very interesting, don't you think?
I do.
It's going to be leadership politics 601.
I believe it's going to be very interesting.
Bullish on it or worried about it?
I'm not sure yet. I'm right now. My real interest is the way that the process comes together, because I think that I want it to be reflective of what our city looks like.
And at this point, that City Hall's got to lay off a little bit. Make a big time decision and then let it work.
Let it happen.
Let it work. Appreciate your point of view.
Thank you.
Maribeth Calabro from the Providence Teachers Union. Final word when we come back. Stay with us. So this is going to be a fascinating progression on the education front here with the new commissioner coming in next week. I'm sure that she will arrive here after she's taken copious notes on what's going on not only in the city of Providence, but across the state. There are a lot of things coming down the pike educationally here in the next couple of weeks. The legislature has a big package that they're going to introduce, and there's a whisper about a new Secretary of Education position, which I hope is just a whisper, because we don't need to change that stuff now. You have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much for tuning in.